I'm here with Bear. Isn't that right, dude? Your name's Bear, ain't it? If you're not one of the cutest little hug-a-pugs I've ever seen, whenever you see a pug, you gotta hug it, by the way. It's just hug a pug. It's just how it works. I did not turn off my notifications. Whoops. Maybe I should sort of kind of do that now. Give it a look-see. Sometimes the little notification machine goes off a lot, making it tough to have one of these little talks here. So a lot of people, and by a lot, I mean quite a lot, they recommend waiting till your pup reaches a certain age before training. And Bear, what are your thoughts about that? As you can tell, he doesn't think it's a good idea. And Bear, you want to tell him the reason why? Now, if you can't read pug language, what he's really telling you is, if you wait, it's going to be a lot harder to create the result you want. And here's the deal. The longer we let the puppies do something or some things that are naughty and not nice, then when you go to interrupt that or disrupt that or try to redirect that or whatever method you choose, it's just a little bit harder. And so the longer a puppy's allowed to repeat a bad behavior, the more that puppy believes that bad behavior is acceptable. And I kid you not, one of the easiest ways for a dog to believe the way they're behaving is acceptable is when we don't interrupt the negative behavior. And so what I mean by that is I was working with someone recently and the dog was getting kind of aggressive, right? And it was getting a little growly and barky. And normally they just let it go. Why? Well, it's easy because we start thinking, you know what? This dog is upset. We don't want to make it any worse. We don't know what to do. And so in the absence of doing something, we typically are doing something. It's just not what we want the dog to do. At least we're not giving the dog the right feedback, should I say. And so the feedback that they need is for you to care enough to do something. Because what happens is literally this. The dog saying, hey, there's a problem, or hey, is it cool if I do this? And then if we just ignore, then they explore that territory further. And so for a lot of people, their dog might start out just a little growly, little barky, backing up a little bit when people go to pet or something. No problem sniffing, let's say. But if someone tries to pet the dog when it's sniffing and the dog hasn't said it's okay yet, right? But basically what's happened is we're taking orders from the dog, believe it or not. So these little buggers, like children, are good at giving orders, absolutely. But it doesn't mean we should be good at taking them from the child or the dog. I mean, sure, if you want to give your kid king for a day or whatever that might be. And same thing for the dog, sure, I guess I kind of get it. But for the most part, what you really want to do is teach these little buggers that you are the rule maker. You're the decision maker so that they'll gladly follow you. Is that making sense, Bear? Yeah, Bear agrees. One of the things we've been working on with Bear, which is really fun, is just to get him to be calmer. And a lot of people go like, dude, what did you do to these dogs? Why are they so calm? It's just from interacting with them in a calm way. So instead of giving him the loving and the praising and the rubbing and the hugging and all that kind of stuff and the nuzzling and all that, I wait until they're behaving great. But when you do it early, that's what's going to lead to trouble often. And if you do it at the wrong time, when the dog's excited and what you're trying to do is teach your dog to be calm, it just never works out. So this thing with the age thing, what age is appropriate to start training a puppy? The moment you get it, because they're learning. It's like an artificial intelligence, right? It's not like a computer in the sense of the old school computers that we think of where, you have a program and it basically operates off the program. No, this is like the artificial intelligence here where every interaction will accumulate info for them, and then they'll use that info in the next interaction and base their decisions off the last info or the accumulative knowledge they've gained up to there. So in the next interaction, that's right, they've learned something new, and they'll take that to the next interaction, so on and so forth. So because our dogs are constantly learning, it's up to us to help kind of direct and guide what they're learning. Just like a child, right? We send them to school, not to the streets, so that they could learn the curriculum. And for puppies, there's a curriculum, right? And we kind of want them all to be calm, cool, not barking at weird stuff. We want them not nipping, not jumping on us. We want them not eating the furniture. We want to be able to leave them out of the kennels and them not destroy the house. Oh, there's all these things we expect, but oftentimes we don't give them anything in return to deserve it. And so the things that we have to give them is that strong confidence in, yes, you can trust, you can follow me. I am your friend. I am here to help you. And if you just focus on me and follow me, all good things will come of it. And if they truly believe that in their heart, listening is usually a pretty easy deal. They're not going to struggle unless they're just clueless on what you're saying, in which case you just need a little training. But I find that the quicker we start training, and I don't mean like, teach the dog, let's say, agility, but you could certainly start seeding some of those concepts, right, Bear? So that then when your dog is, let's say, old enough, of what's considered old enough to, let's say, do some bigger jumps or something like that, where you don't have to worry about the dog hurting them joints or whatever it is that people worry about with that stuff, that now we have some good foundational work, right? But if we let it go till the pup's an adult and we just kind of let them do what they do, then when we try to get a handle on it, yeah, the brain's more developed. So sure, it might be easier to communicate certain things. But, geez, I tell you what, maybe it's easier to think of it like this. Imagine you got this detonator, and over here is like this big behavioral bomb, if you would. And as that detonator's going, when you get to that behavioral bomb, there's not much you could do. It just kind of explodes in your face, and I was like, But if you could put out that detonator early, and any time that thing starts firing up, put it out. That's what's like training a puppy. So if you just keep putting out that detonator, like the behaviors never blow up. But oftentimes when someone waits, that dog's just getting worse, and that detonator's going. And before you know it, boom. And so I'd hate and do hate for people to be in that predicament. Now, can I find some sort of like awesomeness about it? Well, sure. They're learning. They're going to do better with the next one, hopefully. But when someone gets in that predicament, I feel bad. I'm like, geez, like they didn't purposefully try to make the dog cuckoo. They just didn't know any better. So we often associate the dog going cuckoo with the dog being cool. And we're like, wow, that's cool. That dog's going cuckoo. Like, look, that little tail's waggling and it's happy to see us. And I get that. I totally do. It's easy to interpret it that way. And there's a part of that that's very accurate. But here's the deal. They can also be happy to see you and be calm, right? You can be calm and happy to see us. You sure can. And I took this little guy to see his parents recently. And it's true, like he is capable of being lovey-dovey and calm and listening and all that good stuff. But it's really about teaching them that that's what we want. Like that's the way we want you to operate, is in the level of calm, not in like the crazy bear stuff you were doing, right? Right? Hug a pug? Trying to fall asleep over here, dude? Not that calm. You can wake back up a little bit, no? All right. You might be saying, I'm ready for a nap, which is fine, dude. If you want to take a nap, that's A-okay, isn't it? I'm trying to like wake him up through gentle petting, but boy, his eyes seem super closed. Did you have a tough day? What happened, man? Jeez, just falling asleep in my arms. Oh, you really do have to hug a pug if you haven't tried it. It's like a really good time, just hugging a pug. Oh, they're so cuddly. They're so cute. Like they hardly even have like a muzzle. It's just like a nose, just a flat little face there. Yeah. You're woke up now that I'm talking about your nose. Sorry. You could be slightly embarrassed by that. I don't know. Yeah, no worries, dude. We won't tell any of the other dogs. You do have a muzzle. It's a long muzzle. It's like a German Shepherd snout, or schnoot, as they call them. But yeah, like the earlier you start, the earlier you're going to reap that benefit. Now, what might that benefit be? Well, if you start day one, hey, puppy, just so you know, nipping me is not a thing. Don't nip me. Then what happens is as they grow older, they're not going to think about nipping you as much, right? And if you do it enough, they might not even think about nipping you at all. You might just be off the menu. But if they grow up nipping you and biting you and you're like putting it off, like, well, I don't want to train yet. You're teaching them the nip and biting is kind of okay. So again, just remember, if you don't interrupt it or disrupt it, they're going to believe that what they're doing is acceptable or allowed. Now, is there a way to shape behavior outside of that? Well, sure. So the ignore method could work great at the door, and someone comes in, dog's jumping, so the person leaves, and the dog's like, well, I just wanted you to see me, so they come in, dog jumps, the person leaves. They're like, well, no, I really just want you to see me, so they come in, dog doesn't jump, they click, treat. Sure, I get that. That could work, absolutely. But when you get a scenario that, let's say, you're trying the ignore method and it's just getting worse, right, Bear? Then we want to switch it up and we want to interrupt. And if we could just interrupt that behavior and then the dog chooses something else, that's where the magic happens. So what might that look like on a leash, let's say? Now, recently, to test these suckers, I haven't really tested one yet. I'm excited to test it. I have to find the right nippy mess of a dog, but I got these cool little things, which are supposedly a chew-proof leash. And I got several different versions of them. But I help people with nipping all the time. And one of the things I'll hear is, well, okay, Jeff, I followed your advice. I put the puppy on a leash. And I went to use the leash to stop the puppy from nipping me, which went absolutely fantastic until the puppy started biting the leash. And then I didn't know how to get the puppy to stop biting the leash. And geez, when I tried, they started nipping me again. Oh, gosh. So thinking of something like, just strategy sometimes. Well, if the leash is chew-proof, at least you're not getting nipped. And then when that puppy chooses to stop biting that leash and not bite you, then you click treat, But you can disrupt that way instead of just ignore. So instead of just taking the bite, waiting for them to stop, or instead of just redirecting because the dog's disrespecting, I don't know if that's good. What we're going to do is just interrupt. We disrupt the behavior. We disengage. We wait for them to disengage, do something else, and then reward that. And so that's what starts leading to like the calm doggy. Now, how do I know this stuff works? Well, I've been doing it since 2005. And I've trained thousands and thousands of dogs now. And in doing so, I see that there's this pattern, and it works for all of them, where the brain typically will only focus on one thing at a time for doggies. Don't get me wrong. They could think of several things at once, but really their main focus is on that one objective. And so if you could just split the focus, you're going to split the difficulty and make it less difficult, right? So you're going to break that difficulty in half typically. So what that might look like is, let's say I'm working with a dog that's like super duper jumpy and crazy and bouncy. And we might just do something as simple as throw a little treat out there and say, leave it. And then now all of a sudden the dog's like, no, wait a second. Do I want to try to steal that treat because it's right there? Or do I want to jump on the person? And depending on how much the dog likes those treats, they might go, well, I really just want to get this treat. And in which case you might say, okay, no, and interrupt. But then the dog's like, well, if I can't have the treat, I'm going to go jump on this person. And then you might need to like slide that treat a little closer. Like, hey, remember this? And they're like, oh, yeah, that thing. Okay, try to get that. And again, you're like, well, no, I said leave it, though. And they're like, well, fine. If you're going to let me eat, I'm going to go jump on the person. And you'll cycle in that for a while. But then eventually the dog's like, okay, well, if I can't jump on the person and I'm pretty interested in this treat and I can't have the treat, well, then what on earth should I do? And what will happen is in that moment, the dog's going to look at somebody, if there's multiple people in the room, but typically it's the person that's involved in trying to interrupt. But they're going to look and go, well, what on earth? And then right in that moment, it's like a question because the dog's saying, well, what am I supposed to do? Or, the dog's looking for guidance. So in that moment, we're like, okay, go get your treat. Now, for some dogs, they're like, well, that means go jump on the person. But for other dogs, they're like, yeah, absolutely, I'll go get that snack. And so then you start to create the behaviors you want by not allowing the behaviors you don't want. But oftentimes, we come from a place of trying to stop as it's happening. So like, hey, the dog's jumping on someone. Let's stop the dog. How do we stop the dog? Well, what if we just didn't let them jump? What if we use that leash, not even let them jump or put their paws on someone in the first place? And then when the dog was calmer, then gave the affection, huh? Then we gave the affection right when that dog's calmer, okay? That's when we give all the love. That's when we give the hug-a-pug love. Ain't that right, Mr. Bear? Oh, my goodness, you're a cute little puggy. What was really funny today is, my daughter was watching something on the TV, and it looked like a cartoon of two little pugs that were running amok. One had a lightning bolt on the collar, I noticed, and the other had a bone. And so here was the pug, and he's out, and all of a sudden it's like, well, that pug's watching those pugs on the TV. That's kind of cool. So there's a cute little picture taken of this guy watching those pugs. But anyhow, if you want a calm dog, you could get that if you start teaching them being calm is how they get the love, the affection, the attention, the snacks. But if you got a dog that's like super amped up and, you're all giddy, like, yeah, you're all amped up and I love that. And, then that's all great. And then when you want them to not jump on someone or stop nipping or quit doing the zoomies or, whatever that is, and your dog just like, yeah, no, I'm crazy dog. Part of it's because we've accidentally conditioned that to be your dog's default personality. So what we do is we just adjust the default personality so we get a behavior that we actually desire. In this case, the calm pug. Now, I know a lot of people, they'll say stuff like, well, geez, that dog's just tired. Well, sure. Yeah, dog's tired, sure. We'll buy that. But there's other times, the dog has plenty of energy. They're just choosing to be calm. All right. But the way, again, we make that happen is we just time it a hair different. So right when the dog's calm, that's when we're going to give the love. Not when they're like super duper excited, like jumping around, chasing their tail, doing that kind of stuff. Like, if you want that to be a command, great. But if you want your dog to listen and the excuse right now is, oh, no, they're just too excited, that's what I want to help you fix. And then that's going to lead to a much better relationship with your dog, which will actually help prevent any odds of you becoming a statistic where you end up giving that dog up because you can no longer manage or handle it. It's driving you nuts, which I hear from people so often. Someone's going to go, I love this dog, but Jeff, do you know anyone that wants to give it a home? And I'm like, how old is it? And I'm like, well, what's the problem? They're like, oh, yeah, it bites. I'm like, okay, let me think here. So a 2-year-old dog that bites, could I find that a home easy? Probably not. So puppies, they're easy to find homes for. But that's the problem is people keep them as puppies and they're naughty thinking they'll grow out of it. And instead they grow into it. And before you know it, you have this adult dog that they just don't want to deal with. And I get it. It's tough. So the way we can help prevent that and be really awesome human beings for dogs that we've domesticated and decided to keep in our home is to just learn more about them and how their world works. And instead of trying to make it the way we want it to be, just simply appreciate the way that it is, which is, hey, if you start giving these little buggers attention for being naughty or excited or crazy, and then expect them not to be naughty, excited, and crazy, when really what you really want most of the time is your dog to be calm, except for when you want them to be excited. No? I mean, just being honest. When it works for you, it's cool. But when the dog's like being excited and you're trying to do a Zoom call, or the dog's being cuckoo when you're trying to, let someone in your door or whatever that might be, you're like, geez, I wish this dog would just listen. So I just want to help you understand that since the majority of people just want that dog to be good and just, hang out, that teaching this type of strategy, waiting for them to calm down, then affectionate, waiting for them to calm down, then the treat, waiting for them to calm down, then throwing the toy, like things like that. Versus the dog's looking at you spinning circles like, throw me the toy, roof, throw me the toy, roof. And you're like, sure. See what I mean? Just a hair different. So the way I might do it is dog comes in, it's like, throw me the toy, and it's chasing his tail, throw me the toy. And I'm like, yeah, that's cute. Here, I'm going to go do something else. And the dog's like, huh? And as soon as that dog relaxes and sits or asks me what to do, I'm like, yeah, okay, go get it. Go fetch, whatever. And now we're starting to create the what's the right word? The behaviors we'll appreciate. So, Bear, what do you think, dude? You want to tell him bye? He said, bye, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you later. And maybe it's nap time, dude. Maybe I'll set you down for a nap. That's possible. But it really is about, teaching these little buggers to be calm. And then if you do that long enough, you will be amazed the results you get. All right. Because a lot of people report, hey, my dog doesn't listen just because it's excited. So we start working on teaching them not to be too crazy excited, at least in our control, which would mean, if we said, hey, go be excited, then they know that's the time. But if we're not saying it, excitement's not the default. It's the calm we're looking for the default. Making sense? All right. So if you want to go deeper, make sure you check out askjtdt.com/CC360. And what that'll do is bring you to a page where you're actually get a chance to work with me direct and create the results that you want to create, because oftentimes people want to do justice and do right by the dog and give as much freedom as they possibly can, but they just don't know how to get there. So they start off by giving the dog everything it wants and all this freedom, and then when it goes south, they're like, what do we do? And so I could help you get all that together and in line so that you'll have a less nippy pup or a really obedient dog in no time. All right? But that's what it takes, is just knowing what to do and then doing it. All right, boys and girls, remember, the fastest way to change your dog's behavior is to change your own. All right, Bear. We'll tell them bye one more time, because we did the last time. It was like a false close. We didn't actually go. I just stayed here and kept chatting away, hoping maybe you'd perk up and start being bad or something. Just kidding. Bear's great. All right. Bye for now.